Okay. This one should be a pretty quick one this week. Uh, Again, thanks for the outpouring of support and views and everything of the interview last week with Mike Mannix. That was a great episode, and I really appreciate all the feedback. I think a lot of that is because Mike has so much goodwill, and people like him and like supporting him, and probably got a kick out of hearing him talk very personally about the label. So that was great. It was awesome. Um, this week, I mentioned a couple weeks ago how much the feature on Bandcamp where they let you do a listening party appeals to me, and how I want to do a lot more. And I said I'd promised to do a lot more. I just hope people, try them out. I think a lot of people haven't even done them, and the few that I have done, they're like, "Oh, it's okay." I would like to do more with them. I had kind of a wacky idea about one coming up, but I want to see different things you can do with them, like concurrently streaming video, or I don't know, just something to make it be a little bit more interactive and fun for everybody. But uh, all that said, if you're watching this on Friday morning, uh, the Singulars record on 2 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to do a little listening party for the Singulars record. It'd be awesome if you came. If you can. One of the biggest challenges I think with these listening things is figuring out when is the optimal time. And for a while there, I was doing it, and other people were doing it in the evening because you think, no, people are free. But I think the official, best practice seems to be doing them more during the day, because people are at their computers and people are listening background music anyways. And so doing it around lunchtime or something could be good, or just afternoons where people are, kind of hanging out, getting their work done. I don't know that's a great piece of feedback I would love to know, when is the right time to schedule a listening party? When would you be most likely to tune in? I have noticed that I'm more interested in the daytime ones. Um, and I have tuned in even to ones that I kind of didn't even know anything about, just to kind of see what's up. So what exactly are listening parties? Listening parties are very simply a chat room where at the set time you can kind of get in there a little bit early, and then at set time the album plays via Bandcamp linearly and one time, and and then people can log in and chat, and usually the artist and the label or whoever is in the chat room talking to people, and sort of saying, hey, thanks, and kind of talking about the songs. And um the best ones I've ever been to have been, one was very small, and one ended up being 30-40 people, um where there was like a good amount of dialogue about the music. And it's really nice, because basically what ends up happening is the artist gets all the normal feedback that they would get at like an album release show, where somebody's just like, hey, this is really good, I'm really excited about the new album, these new songs are sounding great. um but it's more about the album. It's like a group listening party. And I sort of make the case that in this world where it's harder and harder to get out to shows for a lot of people, and where there's just a lot of stuff vying for your attention, taking a moment, slowing down, going, supporting friends in a very low key, low pressure situation, um, is actually something we really need. We don't have enough of those things, and it's very important to try to celebrate the little things. And releasing an album isn't little, but um, just taking the wins as they come. And a low barrier of entry thing like this, just tune in at a certain time and hang out. You can talk or not talk, that's perfectly fine. Uh, and get to observe the artists talking to their friends and family and fans. It's just really, I mean, it's not the same as a record release show, but it certainly has the vibe. And if we can, foster that same vibe via this feature, I just think it's really cool. I just think it's really important to be together. And also, like, if Brad has a new record, Brad Rose of Jewel Garden and Foxy Digitalis has a new record, I can't go to his show. It's going to be in, Oklahoma, or whatever. Like, I think there's just the truth that a lot of your people that want to help you aren't going to be in the, in a 25-mile radius, So anyways, I think they're really fun. I think one of the barriers is that artists, it's the same thing as what we were talking about, which I'll talk about in a moment, around pre-releases, like doing a Kickstarter version of a record, where it's like, if it sells 80 copies, we'll print it. And if it doesn't, then we'll wait. Um, I think this is the fear of, what if I threw a party and nobody came? Yeah, I mean, that's part of it, but I mean, who cares? We're all adults. Like, if we do a listening party and 7 people show up, that still can be fun. I've been in rooms with 10, 12 people, and they're very talkative and having a good time. And there's no way the artist left that being like, oh, nobody showed up. They were very nice and fun. And the people who were there, 1 or 2 of them bought the record, during the stream. And that's still super powerful, especially when we're such a low stakes, um, types of music. And, we're doing this about records that, only are trying to print about 100 records. Truth and some attention is, um, pretty good. Um, yeah, so I would encourage artists to get a little bit over that. What if I throw a party and it doesn't, and nobody comes? Just in general, I think the world's, there's so many other things to be worrying about, I guess is what I think. And there's such good upside. So, but yeah, definitely think about that. If you're a supporter of somebody and they're putting on a listening party, it's not very different than trying to put on a show and being like, I hope people show up. I don't want to play to an empty room for my big celebration. So understand that that's what's going through an artist's head when they're, uh, setting one of these up. Um, so I talked about that feature, and kind of related, like I just said, I've been talking about that and thinking about the future of like a Kickstarter sort of print on demand, or not print on demand, print to pre-order, um, style model for vinyl releases, and how it's what we all should be doing, but we won't because it's so scary, and it will reveal that basically nobody sells anything. I sort of was chastising people for like, get over it. We should try this. And then I thought about it and I was like, well, what if I did that myself? And I kind of sat around cobbling together different things, like some code front end I could put into my website, plus using some tools like Zapier and, Google Sheets and things like that. Like, how could I do a pre-order that you can pre-order the record for a set price, including shipping, and then if we reached 80 copies sold, within the month or 6 weeks, and then if we don't, we don't print it. Maybe we'll come back and do it, and everything gets refunded to people. Um, I think that'd be really interesting. I have started talking to a couple of people about that, um, to be test cases. And I think Yield's a good place for this because we were already talking about doing, digital only until something has been proven to be, worth printing, and not worth printing, but yeah, worth printing, like that we can cover the costs of printing. Uh, some other people I'm going to propose it to. I think, I think it's a good idea. I do think it's a scary idea for the artists, and any artist who's willing to try this is, uh, you know, I'm very impressed and excited if they're willing to do that. Um, yeah, I sorry to have unstructured thoughts. It's something I really want to do, kind of like this leaning harder into, uh, listening parties. Another thing that I just know is good and I want to lean into is this idea of kickstarting records. Now, I could use Kickstarter and everything, but I don't think the 30% or whatever, it's not 30%, it's some percent. It would be like, on an average record, 100 sold, it would be, $300 would go away, and that's a lot of money. So I think trying to process it yourself could be really interesting. I also don't think these records are the types of records that, like, the sort of network effect of any of these Kickstarters would be helpful, or like running ads against it the way you want to do when you're doing things on GameFound or Kickstarter. So I don't think it's really worth it to try another system. And a lot of I was searching around, a lot of the places that were doing this have not have stopped. there used to be 2 or 3 or 4 places that basically offer the thing that Bandcamp did, where they'll just host a, a Kickstarter-like thing for you that you can plug into a bunch of other places, and then it goes to press if it hits the numbers. I think it's very telling that all those businesses seem to have pivoted or are just gone. Um, I do remember almost all of them having higher numbers than what I want. So, they were 250, 300 copies. And yeah, I think in this day and age, trying to ask a bunch of, you would have to capture a long, long tail the way Bandcamp does, all the way down to like nobody's selling nothing. If you know what I mean? And I just don't think when you have the limits of, oh, it has to be a 250 copy record or 300 copy record, that you're going to get that long tail. So I think that's really interesting. I also just think people would like it more if it was just homebrewed. They'd be more interested in supporting. So I keep an eye out on that. I think I'm going to work on that with an upcoming thing. And obviously I'd like people to support it. Obviously I want people to come to this listening party idea. I think these are good experiments, and I'd love some support for them if they kind of make your brain go. So those two things. I want to talk very quickly. This is very much this is very much the week of singulars. I've been talking about this record a lot. I also don't feel like I've been talking about it enough. But we've played almost every track from it at the end of one of these shows or these newsletters. The CD turned out so cool. It's cool because it's just a bunch of photos I had taken that have to do with kind of an interplay of light and building, like kind of mundane life, but the lights at the time, for whatever reason, were captured and kind of made these spaces more interesting. I think that's a good fit for the record. It's a very cool record. It really helps me define more of what yield is. And I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm talking nonstop about yield, but a lot of people, when I bring it up, are like, I don't know what you're talking about. So yield is this imprint on Debacle. I think some people have called it my sequel to Motor. Previously, I had a event series and label called Motor that was focused on hardware electronica, improvisation, kind of more minimalist techno house, dance music, and the event series especially was quite successful and a lot of fun. Also a lot of work. And I burnt out pretty hard on that and sort of took a step back. And that's when I kind of took my major step back. In contrast, those were more like we would make EPs and singles and vinyl, and we'd do tape releases for the longer stuff. In contrast, Yield is kind of focused on, uncool sounds now, which is not really what it is, but like we've done this. My rant with Yield is usually we've done a lot of going into the past and mining the past as an underground culture and going, oh, here's some uncool sound. Let me absorb that and do interesting things with that uncool sound. Yield is sort of stating, yeah, I think a lot of us in my age group and scene kind of got into the world that we got into via things like mainstream electronica or those classic early IDM records or a bunch of post-rock stuff, when you're listening to Tortoise and Mouse on Mars. And I mean, for me, I will talk your ear off about the career of the Chemical Brothers and how they are woefully misunderstood and one of the more interesting synth bands in the world. A lot of this stuff is really important, and I think everybody else kind of, not everybody else, my cohort, I think a lot of us started there immediately. We're like, oh, Finesse, oh, Black Dice, oh, and then just went out into the American underground and sort of left some of this stuff behind. And I think it's time to use some of those ideas and modernize them. I'm truly saying use those ideas, um, recreate, not cosplay as those ideas, not LARPing as uh, Mille Plateaux in 1999. That's not the goal. It is to take those things as influences and make modern music with it. There's been 2 records now, both involve Parl Walsh. Singulars is him and Mike Sparks, and he has a solo record that was sort of the fits and starts beginning of the label. Um, and as I've talked about before, I have a whole chunk of stuff ready to go because I've been sitting on these records for a few years while I decide whether or not to do Yield. And this record coming in, plus some other stuff coming in, just made me go, I got to do this. Like I'm sitting on some of the best records in my career as a label, and not putting them out because I didn't know whether or not I could stand doing the side label, and that's silly. That's stupid. This is the first one out. It's actually the 4th one in the catalog. We're gonna have stuff from Steve Eldon Kerr, this kind of unknown producer, anonymous producer called Noise Witch, which is really good, that we just kind of locked on and we'll be, printing right now. Basically, Tears La Familia, who are incredible, are working on a record with us, and all these sorts of bands are doing a really good job of creating the constellation that I wanted to create around Yield, and going like, oh, so that's one edge, and like this is another edge, and like Tears La Familia, Noise Witch, and Singulars all kind of sound a little different, but to me, it's kind of, I'm putting together a circle of like, this is the scope of what I want to do. Um, and why am I doing it as a separate label? I'm doing it as a separate label because, or a separate imprint, because there's just some truth to the average person who picks up a Nick Chalace record, um, isn't going to love a Noise Witch record. I do. I think they're all the same. These are all things I like for similar reasons in my head, but I also know that that's not for everybody, and um, it can be a little jarring when you go to your favorite label and look at the next thing, and it's completely different. Um, so yeah, kind of keeping all the stuff that's like the Enter Ear record, the Spiritual Exit record that we're working on, those sorts of things, and then all that fingerstyle guitar, psychedelic guitar stuff that has become a big part of the label on Debacle, and then this sort of home listing electronica records, dancier stuff, more fun and poppy overall. Though the 2 that have come out first are probably the most, dank, weird, more IDM, more post rock. But yeah, you'll see it's going to be a lot different. So that's what Yield is. Like, it's a good time to talk about it because, again, tomorrow is the official release date for Singulars, and tomorrow at I'm recording this on Thursday at 2 p.m. Please, if you want to check out the album, it's going to come out. I probably won't release all the tracks until right after the listening party. A couple tracks are up, and then I've played a bunch of these songs at the end of newsletters before. Please check it out. It's a very good record. It's like, I keep thinking about how much it makes me think of like interesting Germanic post rock, Tortoise, and then I finally hit on, because these sort of beautiful, what I assume are guitar lines, or I don't even know, that are very haunting, that fill up the space in a really cool way and interact with the rhythm in a really cool way. Actually reminds me of like the first 2 DJ Shadow records, of all things, from an atmosphere point of view. And um, like, if you know me from my youth, like this is kind of hitting me right in my sweet spot. So yeah, pretty rambly today, but yeah, these are the things I want you to know about. I want you to know about, let's do more Bandcamp listening parties. I'm going to be thinking and working on this idea of how do we approach this threshold Kickstarter type printing. And I'll be talking a lot about that as I do that. And Singulars and Yield, it's kind of a big coming out day for this. It's a hard launch of Yield, and I'm very excited. And like I said, I'm throwing another thing into the manufacturer like right now, as we speak, probably. And so I'll play a song. As much as we're Singulars, you've heard a lot of the Singulars. I think I almost am out of tracks. So let's play another track from Noise Witch that just got some incredible mastering by Phil Petroselli, who's been a guest on this newsletter before. I'll figure out what track I'm playing, and I'd love to hear what people think about it. That's it for this week. Again, thanks to Mike for jumping on last week. And next week, we're going to have a very cool special guest, an artist that I've yet to work with, but has a new one out on Eider Down. Yeah, I think that's it for me this week. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, take care, and I'll see you next week.
Bye.